Hello, I am Dean Isley, and I would like to talk to you today about waning inertia. I know you've all experienced it at one time or another, where you've been to either a Sunday service or a retreat, and you've heard a message that was especially inspiring, where you know that the speaker was truly Spirit-led. And then later on, maybe the next day, maybe even later on that same day, all of that energy that you felt during this talk and immediately after it just kind of goes away. And you're just right back there in the normal, same old, same old. Well, Jesus knew about this too. And he spoke about it in the parable of the sower. The parable of the sower is quite long, so I'd like to share with you just a few verses from it. I'll be reading from the George Lomsa translation from the ancient Aramaic manuscripts. And I'm reading this parable, which is found in several places in the New Testament and in the Gospel of Thomas. But I'll be reading from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4, verses 1 through 20, and then a little bit about from verses 23 to 25. And I would like to read for you verse 11 to highlight here. Jesus has given this message to the people who are standing on the shore as he was in a boat. So we have people who are grounded in earth, in that earth-type consciousness. And they're listening to, they're being taught by someone who's on a boat on the sea, someone who's in spirit consciousness. So this message is coming from truth. The sower, in this case, is Jesus himself. And Jesus said to them, now he's talking to his disciples. This is after the parable has been taught to the crowd. So them in this case is his disciples. And not only the 12, but others. And Jesus said to them, to you is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God. So here is our clue about what this parable is about what is actually growing out of the earth after the seed is sown. I'd also like to share with you verse 14. The sower who sowed the word. So what is being sown here? What is being planted? The word. Truth. It's a message of truth. It's not a message of truth that someone made up in their mind. This is Spirit-led. It's coming from heart. It is coming through the speaker, not from the speaker. Subtle difference, but very big difference. And then verse 15. The word which was sown in their hearts. So this word isn't just heard with our ears. It actually is being sown in our heart. And there's different types of soil in this parable. There is soil that is of the roadway or by the road. There is rocky soil. And there's soil that's overgrown with thistles and weeds. And then there's the good soil. In the roadway, the seed, the word, is only heard. When it falls on rocky ground, grows up and withers, or in the thistle, the weed-covered ground, the seed grows but is choked out. This is where not only is the word heard, but it's received. It's brought into the heart. And we have this growing that's beginning. We may even have a sprout, but the sprout doesn't make it to the full fruit. Only in the good soil do we get the full fruit. And so I'd like to read for you verse 20. And those which were sown in good soil are those who hear the word, they receive it, and bear fruit. So not only do they sprout, but they bear fruit. 130, 160, and 100-fold. And what do we know about fruit? Fruit contains seeds. We have here more seeds ready to be planted. That seed that's coming from the good soil. That good soil. We've reached the kingdom of heaven here. Isn't that what we got from verse 11? This is about the mystery of the kingdom of heaven. Now, what do we know about good soil? If you've ever done any gardening, you know you can't have good soil that's weed-free, that doesn't have the rocks, without some work. That's Unity's fifth principle. We have to do the work. It isn't just that we connect in the prayer, that we open ourselves to Spirit. That's the receiving. It isn't only that we hold the thoughts. The third principle, and we have to do the work. We have to receive. We have to hear it. We have to receive it. And we have to do the work to keep that good soil, tilling over and over again. And that's what we're getting. And if we go back and we look at the talk that I gave some weeks ago, that was on this chapter 4, verses 23 to 25, we see that over and over again, we go back to tilling this soil. And that word now that's getting into the good soil has not only been heard, it's not only been received, but it is sprouting. So you see, we're keeping that inertia now. That waning inertia is no more. Because not only have we heard the truth and received it into our heart, but it has begun to sprout and it yields fruit. We are now ready to share that word, that message of truth to others and planting our own seeds, and we become the sower. So the sower begins as Jesus, sharing a message of truth, and then others hear it who have the good soil that's been prepared. And now that truth is being shared openly. So you can see how beautiful it is. When we're born, we're that good soil. But very quickly, our education that we get from watching others, from so many places, we begin to cultivate the weeds and we bring in the rocky ground. It's just part of being, growing up as human beings. But it doesn't have to stay that way, because we can prepare the soil. And in verse 23, we know that we're going to do this. We're going to fall asleep, but we're going to go and waken up again. And we're going to do this over and over, night and day. And eventually, we're going to grow that sprout. And as we continue this labor of love, that sprout will become the ear. And eventually, as we continue this process, we are now ready, because we have within us the seeds to share this same truth to others, in the hopes that as we scatter it around, yes, some of it's going to fall on the roadway and be heard, but never received. Some of it is going to fall on rocky ground, and it's going to look like it's really growing, and it's going to jump up, but it's going to wilt in the sun. Some of it is going to be that truth that falls on the weed strewn, the thistle ground, the earth that's covered, and these thistles just choke it out. There's no room for it to grow very tall, and so it doesn't bear fruit either. But when we've cultivated that soil within ourselves, by doing the work, by connecting with God in prayer over and over again, taking the actions that are ours to do, we become the good soil, and we keep that inertia rolling, and we bear fruit and share that word, share the message of truth to others. That is the mystery of the kingdom of heaven and the secret behind the parable of the sower. Thank you very much for listening today.